All right, eighth graders, today you're reading about Nero and Vespasian, finishing up your narration. Hopefully, do it for tomorrow. And um, we'll finish up our packet next week and we'll be done with school. So, not too much left in Roman history. Just want to hit some highlights for you as we got to sort of do a rush job here at the very end. Um, but a couple of the highlights we want to make mention of in the Roman world. Um, some important things that happened. One, I want to talk about the thing on the right first. During the era of Marcus Aurelius, one of Rome's most famous emperors, who we're not going to get a chance to read about, but he's an interesting guy, wrote an important book, um, and it's called the Meditations, and it's basically a way of viewing the world that's very detached and calm and reason, and it's going to sound a little bit like the book of Proverbs, actually, when you read it. But during his reign, there was a terrible plague that broke out, uh, called different things. The plague of Antonine, and sometimes called the plague of Galens. There's lots of different names for it, but what you should know about it is that about 10% of the Roman world died because of the plague. Today we're going through a plague ourselves. We're dealing with pandemics. Um, Mortality rates are very low, right, for the COVID-19. So you could be thankful that we live in a time where really very few people have died from this new disease. And not the case during this plague. A lot of people died. 10% of the population. That's going to be a giant chunk of the world's population dying. Somewhere around maybe 5 million people die from the plague. And it's a scary time. There's a picture there of the angel of death coming down and killing people. Um, and and people didn't know what to do. Thought it was an end of the world. Um, the other important thing I want to make mention of from this time period is another emperor called uh, Caracalla. And what's he's so important because he gave citizenship to people that were in the Roman Empire. Up to this point, Roman citizenship was a pretty elite thing. You couldn't get it very easily. Had to be born in Rome, and maybe you could purchase it if you were one of the rich elite people. But here he gives it to the commoner. Anybody in the Roman Empire now is a Roman citizen. And that gives rights to people who had previously been completely disenfranchised. And it also, in some way, starts the beginning of the end of maybe the disintegration of the Roman Empire. Now that anybody could become a citizen, um, citizenship didn't maybe mean as much and wasn't held in such high regard. And it led to maybe some fracturing in the Roman world that we're going to see in a little bit after Caracalla in the split of the Roman Empire. It's going to take a long time. It actually kind of does this in fits and starts. Eventually, a guy named Constantine, who you hopefully should know, but we'll talk about him next week. He removes the headquarters to a place called Byzantium, or he's going to call it Constantinople. And it takes a while, but under a guy named Diocletian, he's the first one to try to start it. He tries to break the Roman Empire apart so that it could be better managed. Obviously, it's such a huge empire, huge population. It's tough for one person to rule it all, and so just like maybe just like Alexander in Greece, after his death, they break it up. Well, they break this up into different parts. East and west is really what sticks. They tried 4 different parts at first, but then they go with just two. And it's going to sometimes it'll get unified, sometimes it'll break apart, but eventually, by the fourth century, it's broken apart permanently, and there's the east and the west from here on out. And whenever we talk about Rome's fall in 476, we're really just talking about that western part, the part in red. The green part is going to go on for a long, long time. They're going to consider themselves the Roman Empire, even though Rome is not part of them anymore. So, a couple big things that are going to happen in this time period. Everyone gets citizenship. Big plague breaks out. A lot of people die, and the empire is split. And it takes a while, but eventually, by the 300s, it's going to be split for good. And then it's going to fall. The Roman Empire is going to fall. in the next century. 476 is going to be the fall. And we'll talk about Constantine and the fall of the Roman Empire next week. And tomorrow's class, I want to talk about what happened to all of the apostles, where did they end up, and the spread of Christianity. So we'll talk about that tomorrow. See you guys. Happy reading.